The BRICS members' Gauteng Air Access meeting was recently held in Sandton. The meeting was aimed at providing a platform for discussion regarding air connectivity between BRICS member states. Air connectivity between Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport and the BRICS member countries is currently limited, as not all the member countries have direct routes into and out of the Gauteng Province. Currently, direct air connectivity is limited to Brazil and China from South Africa. To create greater connectivity, the meeting discussed the importance of air access for trade, investment, business tourism, culture, and leisure. OR Tambo International Airport is the second busiest airport on the continent and provides increased connectivity into the Southern African Development Community as well as East and West Africa. The Gauteng Air Access initiative seeks to support the province's growing Gauteng Together 2030 strategy by facilitating economic growth through greater alignment with the tourism and its trade markets, as well as unblocking obstacles to growth.
We believe that this is a very important initiative because if you look at the BRICS members, those are the countries or the markets in which, from a tourism point of view, we're looking into, but mostly importantly from a trade and investment point of view as a province. I normally, when I take stage anyway, brag about Gauteng and how big it is and how it contributes to the economy. But we know that when things work in Gauteng, the entire country works. And we believe that with the opportunity of running one of the busiest airports in the continent, it actually gives us that opportunity to really, steer, airlift capacity into our country so that we can increase our visitor economy. With that, I would like to just welcome you to all the engagements. Like Ms. Nkadimeng said, we want to use this as a platform for communication, but also for engagement so that we can see how we take the process forward to grow our economy and create much more needed jobs in our country. With those few words, I say welcome, and I hope we're going to have an incredible conversation to drive the process forward. Thank you very much.
In a post-COVID society, we have witnessed the resurgence of tourism with an ever-increasing number of visitors to our province, but also to our country. This growth brings with it immense opportunities for economic development, job creation, and prosperity. However, it's crucial to recognize that air access remains a critical enabler for the industry to thrive and flourish. Aligned with the Gauteng Air Access pipeline, this event marks the first in a series of engagements with the diplomatic community. Today, we have the privilege of hosting the ambassadors and trade commissioners from Brazil, Russia, India, and China. That's our BRICS partners, as well as the diplomatic community from the proposed additional BRICS members. This gathering signifies our commitment to strengthening ties with these influential nations and exploring avenues for increased air connectivity. As we move forward, our follow-up engagement will be with the ambassadors from the pipeline target market, encompassing the Americas, both North and South. We recognize the immense potential in developing air routes to and from these regions. We are also eager to explore partnerships that will facilitate greater accessibility and connectivity. Furthermore, I'm pleased to inform you that the Gauteng Tourism Authority will utilize this engagement to discuss the Tourism Development Fund. This fund is a crucial component of our resource mobilization initiative designed to support the implementation of air access and other strategic programs. It will enable the Gauteng Tourism Authority to effectively deliver on its mandate to promote and develop our destination. Ladies and gentlemen, the importance of air access cannot be overstated. It serves as a key driver of economic development, connecting people, cultures, and markets. By expanding the air connectivity, we open doors to new opportunities, attract investments, and foster international collaboration. In this era of increased global mobility, we are committed to providing a seamless travel experience, ensuring that Gauteng remains a premier destination for tourists, business travelers, and investors alike. We understand that convenience, efficiency, and safety are paramount in the minds of travelers, and we are dedicated to deliver on these expectations. Incidentally, we've also had a series of meetings with AXA and have now developed work streams that will look at both a technical level, but also at a strategic level on addressing many of the areas of concern that have been raised both with us, but also, I'm sure, directly with EXA. They are a key, I think, for both of us. We are key stakeholders of each other, EXA and Gauteng Province Economic Development in particular. And they've shared with us quite an exciting expansion program that they're going to be rolling out within the next medium term, with the next 3 to 5 years. We definitely want to be a part of it. And we definitely want to make sure that together we address all the areas of concern, both from an investment point of view, business point of view, but from the tourists. Because as we've shared with EXA, your first interaction with the country is when you get off the plane in the airport. So that we can do all we can do all we want as agencies, as government, to support, to address issues of ease of doing business in the province, etc. But if your first experience of the country is a negative one, it's very difficult to undo what you have experienced. So working together with EXA, we are going to address many of those issues. And I'm quite excited and looking forward also to how that's going to unfold. So to achieve our goals, we'll continue to work closely with our air access partners. It includes the aviation industry as a whole and the diplomatic community. Collaboration and cooperation are essential as we navigate the evolving landscape of aviation and tourism. Together we have the power to shape the future of air access and drive economic prosperity in Gauteng and our beloved nation. Let me conclude by saying that I'm really grateful, and let me express that gratitude to all the stakeholders present here today. Your presence demonstrates your commitment to fostering strong relationships and advancing the cause of air access. Let's seize the opportunity to engage in fruitful discussions, share ideas, and forge partnerships that will propel Gauteng to new heights of economic growth and sustainable development.
India has historically enjoyed a close relationship with South Africa, given our shared struggle against colonialism and non-alignment movement, and shared socio-economic and demographic challenges. The key pillars of development between both the nations have been capacity building initiatives, lines of credit, grant support, small development projects, technical consultations, disaster relief, and humanitarian help. In the last number of years, India's active economic engagement with South Africa has become evident in the areas such as technology, transport, and pharmaceuticals. On an international level, the two have a strong partnership through IPSA and recently through BRICS. Today, South Africa is India's largest trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa after Nigeria, while India remains South Africa's second largest trading partner in Asia. Trade balance has always been in the favor of South Africa, and our trade figures depict a strong picture and wonderful growth potential. Indian businessmen have a large presence in South Africa with an investment of over 8 to 9 billion USD. The main areas of our engagements have been pharmaceuticals, IT, automobile, banking, and mining, but there are still other sectors where our companies are doing brisk businesses. Indian businesses in South Africa have organized themselves into a platform known as, you all would know, Indian Business Forum. Likewise, South Africa is making inroads in the Indian market through companies such as Sab Miller that has now acquired a majority stake in Indian beer maker. In financial service sector, companies such as First Rand, Sanlam, and Old Mutual are building up their interest in the Indian market. There is a substantial potential for further growth in trade between both the countries. Indian exporters can leverage opportunities in food, sports, outdoor furniture, furnishing, home appliance, and other sectors. Likewise, South Africa can leverage India's petrochemical, fuel, drugs, pharmaceuticals, vehicles, component, and transport sector. Coming to the low-hanging fruits, tourism is one such sector where we see a great potential. And I believe South Africa is expecting more than 1 lakh tourists from India, as around 79,000 came last year. But for us, direct air connectivity remains a focus point as air connectivity is key to unlocking economic growth potential, in part because it enables the countries to attract businesses, opportunities, investments, and human capital. An increase in air connectivity also spurs tourism, which is vital in economic prosperity. Looking forward, I am confident that both India and South Africa are likely to draw on their strong bond and tag team an international platform to champion the developing world. Thank you.
We all have an appreciation of what the BRICS region is. We, as a consolidated group, before even the other member states have joined in, we contribute close to 60% of global manufacturing, close to 30% of global GDP, the largest auto sector combined. So we are a significant economic bloc. Over and above that, we represent a significant proportion of the world's population. 1 in 4 people that reside on planet Earth is from a BRICS member state. So we contribute quite significantly to what it is that we call productivity on this Earth. I'm not going to get into further details of that, but I'll jump straight into the importance of aviation and the economic benefits of aviation. Going back to planet Earth again, we've got close to 900 airline companies in this world, and 22,000 flights flying, and 1,700 airports. One of those airports happens to be the OR Tambo Airport, and that's a very, very significant airport, contributing close to the 30th largest airport in the world, I believe. So it's important to have an understanding before we jump straight into the economics of trade and investment in our region, to understand why aviation is significant and why we, as the Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, through Air Access and through the Department of Economic Development, have really pivoted on making sure that this is a catalyst to driving our growth. The first important thing is that aviation contributes close to 29 million jobs in the world. Aviation is the most connected industry in the world, flying 2 billion passengers globally. And for us as the GGDA, whilst we focus on moving goods and moving money, we believe those things only move when people move. So we're here to basically catalyze an industry that moves 2 billion people. And with that move of 2 billion people comes 40% of global exports, as well as 25% of global sales by all companies on Earth. So air connectivity is important, particularly the role which aviation plays in driving industrialization. And we believe that this city region is a very, very significant driver of that through the OR Tambo Airport and some of the work that's happening in Lanseria and some of our other initiatives that we have. From studies that have been done, I've tried to condense these. This is not obviously very prescriptive. It just looks at the impact of increasing, say, seat capacity by 10% in specific airports in the world. Various city regions will have different elasticities given their market endowment. So, for example, 10% increase leads to 1% increase in GDP, 4% increase in tourism, 1.7% increase in exports, and 3.3% increase in imports. But where we see very, very large multipliers is in the services industry, where 10% increase in seat capacity leads up to 6.6% imports of services and 7.6% growth in exports of services. This is quite important, although as Gauteng, we're a traditional mining and manufacturing hub, at least 70% of our economy is now a services-driven economy. So a good proportion of companies that are in Gauteng and are investing in the BRICS region are in fact services-driven industries. CG, you spoke about the presence of Gauteng companies such as Sanlam. That presence of Gauteng services companies is spread throughout the whole BRICS industries. We've got De Beers invested in Russia, we've got Anglo-American, we've got banks and retail companies invested, which are headquartered here in Gauteng, throughout the rest of the continent, as well as here in the Gauteng, in the BRICS region. And critical drivers of air connectivity are factors that we in the Gauteng city region are endowed with. Firstly, the issue of geography. Our geography in Gauteng is important because it gives anyone who wants to fly here access to a continent of about 1.4 billion people sitting at close to 2 trillion GDP. Infrastructure, I think we've got AXA speaking, so I won't take bread from their mouth. We all know how awesome OR Tambo is from an infrastructure perspective, as well as regulatory and economic incentives, which is really the heart of what we as the Gauteng Province are trying to do, is to incentivize and create a regulatory platform to make sure that we increase air traffic. Then coming to the boring bit, which is the economics bit, I just thought I'll just talk a bit about post-COVID recovery of airline connectivity in the BRICS region, but also discuss how we within the BRICS region connect with each other. So since the onset of COVID-19, globally we're still not where we should be in terms of air connectivity. We've recovered close to 94% of where we were from an air connectivity perspective. But if you look at the little chart above the airplane, you see Russia is still predominantly below where it was in COVID-19. We all understand why. South Africa has still not surpassed its post-COVID levels. China, India, and Brazil have already exceeded. So there is a lot of scope from South Africa, probably led by ourselves in the Gauteng City region, to really increase air traffic, international air traffic travel, because we are lagging behind. However, air travel between BRICS countries has steadily been increasing. And China and India are the most directly connected connections within the BRICS region. Within the BRICS Business Council and the work that we do at the GGDA as well as the Department of Economic Development, there is what is called a BRICS Aviation Working Group that also focuses on improving this connectivity. And the expansion of the BRICS Alliance to include 6 new countries, we view that as an opportunity to increase air connectivity amongst ourselves as well as in the BRICS region, bearing in mind the impacts that are highlighted on why air connectivity is important, and the impact on GDP, the impact on trade, the impact on global sales, and the impact on the growth of the services sector. So why does the OR Tambo Airport matter, and why do we talk so much about it? Firstly, of all air traffic internationally that happens in South Africa, the OR Tambo Airport accounts for close to 70% of that air traffic. And that is quite important. That means for 7 out of 10 people that fly into this country, they will fly through the OR Tambo International Airport. And at least all travelers that are in transit will come 100% through the OR Tambo Airport. Other airports such as Cape Town will account for 30%, and King Shaka accounting for far less, close to 2% of that. And when we look at visitor inflows, if you look at where do we get most of our traffic, from the top 10 countries, only 1 member state there is from the BRICS City region. We have the United Kingdom, the United States, Germany, and India being number 7 with about 80,000. So despite the strong trade and investment relationships that we enjoy with the BRICS, we do not have significant volumes of air traffic. That's not a bad position to be. That just means there is significant room for us to grow there. And why does BRICS tourism matter? Over the past 4 years prior to COVID, compound annual growth rate in BRICS tourism was growing close to 4%, and this is a market that's projected to grow significantly to close to 700 billion by 2030. And the BRICS tourism market is effectively driven by various factors, including the fact that we in the BRICS region have got very rich tourism assets. We have several UNESCO sites, several heritage sites. We in Gauteng are endowed with a couple. We have got Cornhill, which is in the pipeline of being a UNESCO site. We've got the Cradle of Mankind. China has several UNESCO sites as well. India and Brazil also has several UNESCO sites. We also have economically quite growing consumer inclination, a very young millennium population that is keen to travel. We've got rising incomes, and we have got quite significant market share of ardent travelers globally. And in terms of contribution, travel and tourism contributes quite significantly to various BRICS countries. In China, for example, it contributes 11% of their GDP, which is a very, very significant GDP. In South Africa, it's approximately 6%. In India, 10%. In Brazil, 4%. And in Russia, 2%. And having said that, this is the one slide I said was about trade and investment. So what is significant is we've looked at the information since 2016 on how well do we trade amongst the BRICS countries from a South African and from a Gauteng perspective. We have exported close to 1.4 trillion rand of goods to BRICS countries since 2016, whilst receiving close to 2.2 trillion rands worth of goods from BRICS countries. China is our largest trading partner in the BRICS, accounting for 70% of all that trade. India is number 2, accounting close to 20% of that trade. Then you've got Brazil and China accounting for 8 to 2% of that trade. And from that, the Gauteng City region accounts to close to 70% of trade between ourselves and the BRICS member states from a South Africa perspective. So Gauteng is a significant trader in the BRICS region. And as much as the largest proportion of our goods go to China, there's a significant proportion of goods going to India and very strategic goods going to Brazil as well as Russia. For purposes of really getting into the details, but I won't really bore everyone with this, we've done quite an in-depth analysis of what are the strategic goods that we see moving across the BRICS member states from Gauteng into those. So for example, you find that the strategic issues such as 1% of all capital equipment that is exported out of Gauteng goes to Russia. So and 21% of all tooling implements that come into South Africa come from China into Gauteng. 85% of all mobile devices which fly in here come from China. 18% of all copper-related articles come from countries such as Russia. Brazil, for example, sends us 32% of all zinc-related articles that we need in this city region. So having done an in-depth analysis of all these, and without going into the nitty-gritties of which companies have invested here, etc., I would like to end with this slide, which basically, from our view as the GGDA, discusses what are the opportunities we see from an air connectivity basis between ourselves as Gauteng and our BRICS member states. We've identified 2 countries where we think there is a strong opportunity for, firstly, increased air connectivity, and that's China, and number 2, a direct flight, and that's the case for India. So let me start with China. With China, China doesn't appear in our top 10 largest international travelers. Yet China is our largest investor, China is our largest trader. So the economic force that is China warrants that we do play a critical role as Gauteng Air Access in improving connectivity between our 2 flights. Firstly, from a business perspective, but secondly, China is the largest population in the world, and there is an opportunity for increased tourism development between ourselves. Business expansion between us and China is intuitive, I need not explain, but there's also a very strong role for educational and cultural exchange. Secondly, China has a very, very large diaspora of Chinese individuals based here, and there's a growing diaspora of South African citizens based in China. So that also creates a very tactical point to increase air connectivity between ourselves. The point of strategic diplomacy in the world of multi-polarism needs not be mentioned, but it's obvious. And then in light of the logistics and supply chain efficiencies that will be unlocked between ourselves and China, in light of the fact that we are Africa's largest manufacturing hub, and China is the world's largest manufacturing hub, goes without saying. So that's case 1. We do believe as the GGDA there is a case for increased air connectivity between ourselves and China. Case 2, CG, you will love this one. It's a direct flight to Gauteng, and this is the case for India. The first is similar to the Chinese effect. Economic growth and trading and investment between ourselves and Gauteng and India goes without saying. We do think that a direct flight between the 2 regions will unlock so much more economic opportunity. Currently, there's significant trade that happens between our 2 regions, but that trade happens in the absence of a direct air flight. And that will lead to my second point, which is a boost in tourism. Similar to China, we've got a very strong Indian diaspora here and a very, very strong Indian tourism trend. India is the top 7 tourist country in South Africa, and therefore there is a case for a direct flight between us. Cultural and educational exchanges, business and investment opportunities. We in the Gauteng City region offer several investment opportunities for Indian investors, and likewise the Indian economy offers quite a lot of investment for Gauteng-based enterprises, ranging from jewelry manufacturing, agro-processing, etc. Diaspora connectivity. Most importantly, there is a strong case for medical tourism. We've seen a huge influx of Indian citizens that travel into Gauteng seeking to partake in our medical endowment, and there's a strong case for medical tourism from India. So I think I'll end there. The deeper aspects of tourism will be covered by the next speakers, and the deeper aspects of what AXA does will be covered by the next speakers.
Thank you. And also thank you to the MC for also bringing up the topic of acronyms and all. For the purpose of this discussion, though, we will be focusing on the members in the room. So it was largely came in as Brazil, India, and China. So we'll touch a little bit on tourism from those 3 countries and those 3 members of the BRICS conglomerate. But just to give a slight overview on how tourism has gone in 2023, and I will largely say versus 2019, because as we all know, we're chasing back pre-pandemic life. So as of this year, we had closed on just above 8 million at 8.4 million. And it's about 83%. So about 4 and 5 we've gotten back from 2019. We're still fighting, still trying, still pushing, but recovery looks like it will get there. Hopefully it's this year. Hopefully 24 is a striking year for us, but it looks like it's aimed to be 2025. I will give you a view, as I said, of the 3 and how they have performed. So maybe going straight into Brazil as a market. Brazil as a market, in 2019, we were sitting at about 77,000 odd. Close of 2023, we're at about 25. So that's about 33%. Naturally, we know that airlift has a huge role to play for tourism. So whilst we wanted all those bums on seats, as we call them, we could not get them without the planes actually moving. So it's the drop in passengers and this lower recovery is understandable, but it's very positive as we now have our national carrier flying in out of 2 destinations, one being this and obviously one being Western Cape, as well as Latam. So we trust that Brazil is going to make its way back. In fact, in 2019, it had just broke through to the top 10 of international markets. So and was one of the only countries actually serving a double-digit growth. So the Brazil market was literally just shooting at the sky. And we trust that going forward for tourism, it's going to do the same. As a source market, maybe I'll touch on what they like in a bit, but in terms of where else they're going, in their neighboring areas, you've got the US, that's a big place, but obviously it's quite close. So when you look a bit further afield in your long haul, you've got your likes of Europe, so that's your France, your Portugals, Italy, those are quite important destinations for them. But on the African continent, Kenya is where they would also look, but fortunately, South Africa is still leading against Kenya in this particular market. You'll see it in some of the markets, Kenya does own a bit more popularity. But in Brazil, South Africa still owns a good share. And looking in terms of the fastest growing markets out of Brazil, they're quite interested in Nepal. They're interested in our BRICS member being India, the Maldives, Bangladesh, and so forth. So what is it that they're looking for? They love scenic beauty, they love a good time, and they love a break from routine. So that's big elements that you get out of the Brazilians. They are a source market that's great for South Africa, and I will particularly highlight for Gauteng because of the things they're interested in. They like the nightlife, as I've said. They like engaging with locals. Unlike many markets, they don't move through South Africa with a certain degree of fear. And maybe because they're from Brazil and they have their own kind of realities, they're not as afraid to move through South Africa, which for us as South Africa is a great benefit. And obviously my beloved Gauteng, which I love as well, has a great place in that. Because here, I mean, it's the people that drive this province. And that's what the Brazilians also enjoy and they engage the most when in Gauteng. And as you can see, the numbers are, the presentation there, some of them are 2022 because 23 is still an audit, but the trajectory is the same. So don't be too bothered by that. The patterns and all are the same. So as I was saying, that 50% that touches into Gauteng, it's important that from a tourism perspective, we keep serving what it is they want. Your Mabonengs, your Sowetos, the Pretoria, the markets and all of that. Those are the kind of activities that they like to go to. Because as I've mentioned, they like to be with the people. The Brazilians are very easy and very calm engaging with our fellow South Africans. So that's always a win for Gauteng from that perspective. And then typically they'd stay about 2 weeks in the country and they move a fair bit. So they will do your Gauteng as a kind of a landing base and just to get to know the country, and then they'll move out. They do like the Western Cape as well, and then they'll touch a few safari elements while they go. And they're fairly good spenders in that they spend about 30,000 give or take in those 2 weeks. So obviously trying to grow GDP, grow income from tourism, they are a good partner in the whole dynamic of things. Just in terms of opportunity, it goes from a tourism point of view. It goes back to just making sure when we package, when we attract the Brazilian market, we're making sure that we bring, I guess, the true spirit of Gauteng, because again, we're speaking back to this province. So the events are a huge thing for these guys. They're not limited to their own music. In fact, our music culture is very big over there. So stuff like that, Gauteng leads in music, it leads in that culture. So it's packaging the real side of Gauteng and those kind of elements. That's what really attracts the Brazilians in this market. And I think from there we skip into the Indian market. Now the Indian market, again, a very important partner for us. It is the best performing partner in the traditional sense of the BRICS partners. Again, but actually in all of them, it's grown the fastest compared to 2019. So 2019, they were at about 95,000, and they were the seventh highest market in terms of internationals, and they remain. So it's a position they've held. And this is incredible, given they don't have direct airlift, given the visa issues that sometimes do become a deterrent. The way this market performs in South Africa, as all my colleagues have said before, having direct airlift from these guys, it's pretty clear what it will do. Just the way they've managed to grow from even before 2019, those last couple of 3 years before 2019, their performance was honestly incredible. And to say that even to date, they're still holding that seventh top market, that's really good feat. And just to stress on that airlift is important. Once you get that direct one, it makes a huge difference from travel from within this market. Sorry, no, I didn't skip. In terms of where they're going and our competitors, as you can see, some of the more traditional markets still creep up. So your UK's, your US, but Switzerland is a huge market for them. It's where they're kind of interested in travel, and it's been for a while. And Australia is also a very huge market for them. And whilst there are visas in place for some of these areas, it is a matter of kind of easier, more efficient, quicker moving visas. And airlift also has a role to play in their connectivity in some of these markets. In terms of where they're starting to look at in the growing pace, you see that the Middle East has picked up, but that's obviously quite close to them, so it's a bit easier. You can consider it a bit of a short left for them. So in terms of going a bit further, you see your Kenya start to creep in, and that's obviously on the continent. So when you compare to us to the continent, it's not on the slide, but just to give you context, Kenya still owns a bit more popularity than South Africa does. Granted, there is connectivity through Eastern carriers there, so that does also help them, but the safari experience is also attractive to them over there. But again, South Africa is still attractive in different areas because the tourist market out of this country are very adventurous, so they like the adventure elements. They love the bungee jumpings, the scuba divings, the cultural elements, and also from a food perspective. And in this market, it's quite interesting that they quite enjoy the areas where we connect. So not just trying to find something different, but also the large Indian market here, and the large diaspora, the Indian diaspora here, how they connect, how the food tastes here, how it's slightly made different or slightly made the same. Those are some of the things that do appeal to them coming out of South Africa. And Gauteng, as you see again, is a big touch point for them. So 54% coming in and touching base in Gauteng, so not just flying through and transiting. Some will spend a night or two, just depends on the different splits, but they will take some time here. And also whilst I did say they're very adventurous and they like kind of active stuff, they are also very, very largely into history and kind of cultural exchanges. So again, that's a benefit for Gauteng. That is stuff, there's so much history in this province. I don't even need to name it, because we know that there's a lot of province and culture that sits here that they can connect to. So that's something that we must always keep out. But they are very au fait with the Western Cape. I will highlight that for this market, where a lot of their attractions do sit over there. And I think it's mostly because of that adventure drive, where they feel they can get outside and do your bungees, your what, your who. So from a Gauteng perspective, it's about bringing those to the fore, that you can still get out, you can still get adventurous, you can still do whatever kind of activities that they quite like doing from this base, not limited to your Western Cape / Eastern, because they do a bit of driving on the Garden route. It's a very popular route for them. And increasingly, though, is also the Mpumalanga, the panoramic route. That's also quite popular for them. So I know Gauteng does a fair bit of work with Mpumalanga and Limpopo as neighboring provinces. So maybe that's how we find further linkages as to what can you do from this leg of it, and then how do we connect you to the other adventurous parts in and around Gauteng. From key insights, I've touched on the majority of these, but just going back on the fact that, look, the recovery rate from this country has been exceptionally well, and the misconception of the Indians tend to have a misconception, as I said, about what's to offer, and not maybe on Gauteng alone, but South Africa at large, apart from where they've got good familiarity being Western Cape / Eastern Cape with that Garden route. So maybe it is about bringing more awareness of the different variety of experiences in Gauteng, and as I said, just kind of around as well. This we've touched on, so I'll jump into the last of the three for this focus, being the Chinese market. And the Chinese market for this term, obviously the borders didn't open as quickly as other countries, so performance is naturally expected to be a bit lower in this sense. So they're at 40% of 2019, closing the year at about 37,000, and that takes them out of the top 10 source markets for South Africa and in at about 13, at number 13, whereas pre-COVID they were sitting at about number 8, 9. Whilst, I mean, we're happy that they're in the top 10, we all know that we can get a lot. South Africa could attract a lot more out of these markets. These markets are big traveler markets. They're very curious markets. We have so many ties. Previous colleagues have touched on that. So it is a market that, whilst there's a bit of connectivity here, we'd love to see it pick up. And we'd also just need to draw more and more from a tourism point of view into South Africa, and specifically Gauteng. Long haul competitors, obviously China, obviously Australia. Australia is honestly one of their biggest outbound markets, so, and it remains that way. But in terms of the African continent, Kenya is a big market for them. Again, it's the familiarity with safari. It's not so much the rest of the offering, because the other areas that the Chinese are looking for, Kenya doesn't serve so well on those, but they do serve well on safari for the Chinese market. Where else they'd be going, as you can see, you've got a bit of Indonesia, India, but the main one outbound distance for us being Kenya and so forth. And what it is they're looking for, they're always looking for a bit of just activity. They're not as outbound adventurous as some of the previous markets I've mentioned. So whilst they do want to get a sense, meet people, meet locals, try new things, but they want to do it in certain comforts, I guess. So it's always good to have more structured information for them, where they can find where can they eat, what's on offer, where can they go, so everything is planned in ahead of time, because they tend to go through their trade more than the other markets that I've mentioned. So here it's about having our information very clear-cut, more structured, and easily accessible. As you know, they're a very highly digital market, so we also need to be digital. As Gauteng and South Africa, we need to be digital. We need to be out there for them to be able to easily consume us, because they also have the issue is not the right word, but we also have the same issue that they're not as aware on South Africa's offering. So it's obviously our duty, South African tourism, together with our 9 partners, to bring that offering more to their awareness. And in terms of where they go, as you can see, Gauteng still also remains a big part. And as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, probably one of the biggest players in the tourism field, because a lot touch here or will go via. Hence, we need to keep emphasizing the importance of Gauteng and what needs to be done or can be done from a tourism perspective to attract more and to bring more when they're on the ground, not just to stay in a hotel and leave the next day. That's not ideal. We try and get people out a bit. So yes, as I think we've mentioned, the eating out, the shopping, socializing. Business is obviously a very big thing for the Chinese market. So whilst they could come for leisure, they're always looking for business opportunities. So there's no harm in bringing this kind of information, or industries even. What's around Gauteng? Where can you touch certain industries? No harm in bringing that to the fore. and natural attractions. Natural attractions always hold a big place for the Chinese. They travel to a lot of international destinations for their UNESCO sites, for their world wonders, whatever it may be. They travel to lots of destinations for those key points. So it's always good to bring out our key kind of tidbits that we have in province and in country. For the majority of this, I think we've touched on the insights, but going back to the food culture, they're actually a very experimental food country, so they're not afraid to try. Obviously, just tell them what it is, but they're not afraid to try. So it's always good to bring our food experiences and the different stuff we have to offer, bring it to the fore. And as I said, the iconic experiences add as well. So those big ticket items is something that they're always attracted to, or what we find they're attracted to.
Was further to illustrate the impact that air connectivity has. A study conducted by IATA, I think in 2017, which really shows the overall contribution that actually accrued to South Africa as a result of air connectivity, contributing about 3.2% of total GDP, as well as adding about $9.4 billion in gross value added, as well as contributing about just under 500,000 jobs within the various sectors. In terms of our unique selling point, I think the Gauteng region, which Muzi touched on as well, is really around a geographic location, where we actually have access to about 275 million people within a 3-hour flying radius out of Johannesburg. And essentially, if you look at our overall catchment area, it not only refers to the larger population which is within this province, but also extends to other domestic points due to our very good connectivity into other domestic markets and provinces. But we also have a key advantage where we have extremely good connectivity to other markets, particularly within the Southern Africa region, which are served by at least 3 flights a day. And this really provides a significant advantage for airlines that are flying into OR Tambo compared to the other airports, that they're not only able to tap into the Gauteng market, which is quite significant, but also have the opportunity to tap into other markets within the Southern Africa region. And just to highlight the importance of Gauteng, I think Muzi has already alluded to some of this. Most populated province, largest contributor to the local GDP, and essentially is the province with the largest outbound market in terms of people, South African people that are traveling outside the country, which I think is an added bonus for airlines that are looking to fly into our country. Part of our value proposition at OR Tambo International is our air-to-rail link through the Gauteng terminal, which is within our airport, that essentially enables commuters or avails access to the 3 major nodal points to commuters. You need about 15 minutes to get to the business district in Johannesburg, 15 minutes to get to the financial district in Sandton, as well as 20 minutes to get to the administrative district, obviously through the rail and air link that is provided by both our airport and the Gautrain. So in terms of some of the services that we actually provide as an air access committee, the most important one, I think, is our ability to actually conduct market research to support the development of new air services. And this is derived through various partners and our access to vast resources, market intelligence, and other data tools, which really supports the development of new routes. The other service that we provide as well to airlines is a B2B business development for airlines, which essentially entails us developing business cases to highlight the potential and actually quantify the potential of developing certain markets, and obviously with the goal of partnering with airlines in order to achieve a common purpose. Other initiatives include joint marketing campaigns, as well as drafting legislation positions to actually support policy and regulation development. And in terms of our route network, I think I need to outline we've done very well in terms of recovery from pre-COVID. We've almost seen an over 95% recovery in terms of our connectivity. However, capacity is still lagging behind, and we anticipate this will gradually improve as the global outlook and picture improves. But essentially, if you look at the circled regions, we still have major markets for the Gauteng region which are currently unserved. The Eastern European markets that I alluded to earlier, subcontinental Asia, which is largely India, as well as Asia Pacific as a whole. And essentially part of our strategy is to actually ensure that we are able to develop direct connectivity into those markets. Part of what actually influences our airlift strategy is also uplifted from the BRICS airlift strategy, which was adopted by the BRICS member states in last year's BRICS summit, and essentially aimed at facilitating and fostering comprehensive cooperation between the BRICS member states. I think one thing to note is how the BRICS markets are quite far away from each other. Then air connectivity then becomes a critical link to actually foster that integration within the BRICS bloc, and essentially something that we are paying attention to and incorporating, developing our overall air access strategy. The graph there just highlights the recovery that we've seen in terms of these air passenger markets within the BRICS member states. And you can see Russia actually currently leads in terms of recovery, although that comes from a much lower base compared to the other markets. The other markets haven't fully recovered yet, which basically signifies that there still is scope and room for us to actually grow, which is a big positive, particularly for the airlines we are targeting to work with. And just to give you a brief highlight on our pipeline, essentially these are all the markets that we are targeting to develop, and some of them are actually priority targets for us. Those that we've prioritized are markets that we believe are currently ripe and ready for a new airline to actually exploit. And essentially to support this, we will be piloting an incentive scheme, which I think MEC alluded to, aimed at reducing the risk associated with the development of new routes, which essentially would be great, I think, for the airlines to take advantage of. That being said, thank you.
Really anxious about the trip, because I've been to Moscow many times in my former life, and it is a long, arduous trip. However, for all of us in the room, we've either been mugged in some foreign country and our own country, we've had our luggage delayed, we've had planes not arrive, we have had plane tickets not reimbursed. So let's agree on that which is common, so that we can forge a way forward and focus on that which we can win. That's my first comment in terms of the way forward. Because if we always apply the 80-20 principle or the 20-80 principle, we'll just talk forever. So let's understand and realize that there are some things that may happen in our lifetime, my lifetime, and the younger people, definitely in your lifetime. But whilst we deal with our current realities, what can we do to shift the dial or to amplify the volume? Because in business, it doesn't matter how bad things are, you have to sell your goods. It doesn't matter what the commodity price is doing, you still have to sell your goods. And you have to find ways to ensure that that share price keeps going up. I can't say, like the misery I'm going through at the moment with my car and Jag Land Rover, and I'll give them a bad rap because everybody experiences that with them. Do not buy a Jag nor a Land Rover, not even the new Defender, because I have to be told that the part is coming from London and they've moved their factory in London. Now, you know what? If this was a Cherry Lee or a Haval, my part would be here. Okay? So do you want to sell, or do you want to focus on that which prevents you from selling? Let's leave the obstacles and the challenges to people who operate with fabulous blue lights and way above our pay grades, for most of us in the room, except, of course, the Deputy Consul General, the diplomat. Allow me to be mischievous. So that's the first thing. Of course, for us as Africans, intra-African connectivity is a huge challenge. And how do we use this market as fellow Africans to sell to each other and then to sell to the global south? I've been working on that global currency for quite a while. And it's more, not even the global currency, it's the SWIFT payments where the money leaves our countries. So, you know, we also need to focus on how we frame the debate, because if our money has to constantly go through a SWIFT system that is American-based, doesn't matter. Every time you swipe that card here, doesn't matter, or in China, or wherever you're going to swipe your card, it doesn't matter what you're purchasing. It is the payment gateway and where the money vests, either in London or in the US. So let's also be very sure how we curate the obstacles and the debate. And that is why in BRICS, we wanted our own payment system, which is fast becoming a reality. We've worked on it for a very long time, so the monies can flow in the south, and we share in the dividends of that which is invested. You want a dividend flow. You don't just want it to be to reside in your country. Also, what is very important is the integration of infrastructure. So we will frame the way forward so that when we look at connectivity, it is either your airtropolis, and you're looking at connectivity from the aircraft to rail to road. And we all know our challenges. And for those of us that have traveled either in India, I must say I've been in Soju recently, blown away by infrastructure development, because the understanding of the nexus from an infrastructure level, when a country gets that at the economic development level, then you can see how the value chain and supply chain works, because it's all about supply chain. And even when you're moving people, we are just another commodity. So let's not exaggerate our importance as human beings. You know, whether it's a car you're moving, maybe you get more out of a car than out of humans. So it is that supply chain. Then, so infrastructure. Now, the time has also come for us as South Africans, and I wish Westgrow was in the room, but they were in the room in Cape Town and KZN. If we approach air access competitively as South Africans, no one is going to win. You may have the odd Lufthansa going direct, whatever, Sao Paulo going direct, Singapore going direct to Cape Town, other airlines going to Durban. But to win the war, and not this little fight, we need to bat and go out there as SA Inc., which is something we don't do. And when you've worked in other countries, you know they go to bat if you're a cricketer, to scrum if you're a rugby player, into MMA if you're a MMA fighter, you go there. Jy weet nie wat ons weet nie when BRICS won, okay? So we must go there as SA Inc. And that's how often our teams win. It is the collective support of the majority of our people that give you that gees to go out there and fight above your weight, which is what we have to do. So it is about the collective approach and cooperation. And I'm delighted that SAA is in the room and Access, so that collectively we can look at the commercials. Because that direct flight, for those of us who lived through the collapse of both Chinese direct flight the direct China flights, the Korea flights, the Saudi flights, the India flights. It was around the commercials. And it's all well and good to say to SAA, which was part of the SAA demise, is if routes are not profitable, who else is going to come in and stop the gap? And you can do that. You can do that at a political level. So finally, who takes this conversation further? Because the conversation has to be stratified. And so there are different players. I would like you, as in India in the room, because he's a diplomat, to actually spearhead this conversation with your counterparts. Invite us to your residence, invite Brazil, Russia, and China. We'll worry about the other newer entrants into the BRICS family. But right now we need to focus, are they the big five or the big six? B-R-I-C, the big five. Well, it's a wonderful metaphor to play on South Africa, one of South Africa's iconic. We also trade in lions, not just humans, and elephants. In fact, nobody wants to buy an elephant today in the world. And we have an oversupply of elephants that will lead to huge challenges from a conservation and a protection. So China, if you want elephants, we can sell it to you. I've got a lot of elephants I can sell. I know you also have your elephants, but that's again goods. So if you don't mind, because you're here today and you are vested in this conversation, to ASAP convene a meeting. We'll even travel to Pretoria. We don't need a visa, but we'll come to Pretoria, to the meeting in Pretoria. So Elevate, what was that? We'll fly. I don't have a private jet. Maybe Saki has one, or Blake, or Chopper. We can chopper us. So if there's someone who has a chopper business, please take us to Tshwane in a chopper. So I think it's very important that at a diplomatic level, because you report into your ministers, etc., that we take this debate to that level. Then, as partners in the room, from an Air Access network point of view, I do think AXA, thank you for your healthy contribution on the incentive level. We really welcome that. And of course, while I'm on the AXA matter, I'm not going to do what I did when we welcomed some of those aircrafts. But I had to say that, you know, when Cape Town, okay, let's not go there. But at an airport infrastructure level, the airport has to be attractive. People will fly into Bangkok, for instance, because of the shopping in Bangkok. Recently in Dubai, I must say I didn't know much about Bum Bum, the Rio thing that people queue for, like 100 people in a queue for the Solel range, because you can get it in Dubai. And they want to pass through Dubai to buy the Magic Rio lotions. And it's the most expensive beauty lotion, scrub, body scrub on the market at the moment. I've never seen people queue like that. Anyway, I joined the queue as well. Until they swiped my card, I had no idea what it was going to cost me, but it was too late. So the issue of the airport. Then for us as Gauteng Air Access, when we go to Indaba, let's have a South Africa Air Access meeting. I'm sure it's been arranged so that we can do the takeouts from here, have the CEOs and the GMs of all the regional airports to talk about air access and to commit, and I mean to commit, to a roadmap as to where we're going forward. What else have I left out, Angela? I want to just conclude with the following. As I sat here, I got this invitation, the Future Aviation Forum, under the esteemed patronage of King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saudi and the General Manager of Civil Aviation of the Kingdom of Saudi. You are invited, and it goes on, because Riyadh will become the next hub. So, to our colleagues at DE, to our colleagues in Gauteng, the Premier's Office, IR, to our Premier Office, IR, we need our requests to the Civil Aviation Conference in Riyadh signed, please.
Well, let's firstly thank the MEC in absentia. She had to step out, as we all know, for the message that she delivered. And I also think that it's important to, say thank you to the Deputy CG from India, Mr. Kumar, it's very, very important and critical that we continue to develop and grow, the economic relations between ourselves and India in particular, but also the BRICS and, other member countries. We've heard this afternoon about the huge opportunities that actually exist to increase economic trade and, investment. So, and Saki has stepped out. I think that it's going to be important, Muzi, that GGDA actually is at the forefront of leading increased volumes of economic trade and investment between ourselves, Gauteng, and India, and also the other BRICS member countries. And let's also just say a word of thanks to the South African tourism, our AXA partner. Mayor Sophonia, you actually gave us a very, very interesting trend analysis around tourism. We've actually seen as to where we were in 2019, and 4 or 5 years later, we haven't reached those pre-COVID levels. So our work is actually cut out for us. And I was just having a debate with Baba there about what are the blockages of us actually ensuring growing the tourism footprint, within Gauteng. And my view essentially is that we do have a strategy, we do have plans. I think that we need to focus on implementation and improved implementation in that regard, because that's where I think, that we are failing. We can't have a visa office here, Invest SA, but yet we're still sitting with, challenges around visa, as the, colleague from the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, pointed out earlier on. But just to indicate that we are looking at deepening our partnership with yourselves